Heather Martin. Now, Heather and I go way back. I've known her for a long, long time, and it just seems I keep finding out more and more wonderful things about her. I directed her many, many years ago in a play at the college, and she's a gal of today who is a wonderful person, a wonderful writer. Welcome.
Hello. It's an honor to be on your show.
Oh, well, thank you, Heather. Now, I want to get right to this book that you've written because I found it fascinating. It's a page-turner, and it's really, I have to tell my audience, I believe what you have written, because for many, many years, even as a very young person, I have always felt that our governments all over the world have been pulling little tricks on us. So the name of the book is The Patriot Vampire by H.L. Martin, whom I have sitting in front of me. So I'm just going to let you take it away. Heather, how did you come up with the idea, and what kind of research did you have to do?
Well, the book kind of came from the research. I have always been a researcher, just of many, many random topics, geology, insects, natural sciences, and of course, political and historical events.
Mm-hmm.
When I think about where it might have started, I'm thinking again in college when I was in English 101 and had to do a thesis at the end of the semester. And a young man I was dating at the time had mentioned Illuminati and thought it was
yes.
very mysterious. I ended up doing my thesis on the Illuminati, researching like Adam Weishaupt and the Bavarian Illuminati, and did a paper on it. And I found it very interesting, even when I was doing the research in the college library, that many of the books on the subject had been mysteriously removed from the library. No, they had just been lost. An inordinate amount of books on this subject. And actually, my partner in research and in life, Martin Pollock, he also did a research paper in college on the same subject, the Freemasons, and found the same thing, that there was an extensive amount of books.
My uncle was a Freemason,
that an extensive amount of the books in the library that he was studying had also been removed. So right there, I knew I was on to something. And when I finished the paper and showed it to the guy who had first mentioned Illuminati, he was blown away because he really didn't know what it was. He just thought the word was cool.
Explain to the audience what the word means, what the word is.
Yes, it's the Illuminati is basically the shadow government, the influences that have controlled and manipulated our governments, our societies,
and our church.
And our church, really, that's right, for hundreds of years now. So
Leonardo da Vinci, I believe, doesn't he even mention the Illuminati and in his things about his delving into research with the church and things like that,
right, like
people don't realize
the book The Da Vinci Code,
right,
right, and my book is a political thriller of
similar tell us
vein.
About the book and exactly what I want to know is, I said to my audience, this is a page turner. It's a heavy book. It's a large book, and what made you pick this particular subject that a lot of us kind of feel this way and think this way? I know I do. That you decided to put it down, how our governments in Europe, all over the world, are hiding specific things from us.
Well, in my research, specifically, there were two people that I discovered that really formed the basis of this book, the things that they had talked about. One was Bill Cooper, and he's the author of a book called Behold a Pale Horse. And I strongly recommend that anyone who reads The Patriot Vampire follows that with Behold a Pale Horse. Bill Cooper was a radio person, he had a radio show. He would talk about things that he witnessed in the government, that there are secret underground bases that have been built all throughout the United States. He predicted 9/11, and he knew that the official story on 9/11 was not cohesive with reality. He was speaking out about this, and he was murdered. He was gunned down by police officers on his front porch. Police officers from another county. I mean, they were out of their jurisdiction. Everything was illegal, wrong about the way this man was killed. So when you look at what he was saying and how he was persecuted and murdered for it, it really adds something to the credibility of the speaker. Another person who was equally as influential in the book, who's even mentioned in the book, is Phil Schneider. He was a government geologist, and he worked underground in these secret military bases. And he saw things going on with experimentation on human beings, that people were disappearing, being taken to these places. And he started speaking out. He gave a series of 4 speeches that are recorded. You can find them on the internet. His life was repeatedly threatened. He showed the scars on his body from various attacks. He was missing fingers. And while his death was ruled a suicide, it's very unlikely. He kept saying he was not going to commit suicide.
Do you feel that the government is withholding true information about extraterrestrials, that we are being visited? And I personally kind of don't think that everybody that comes from another planet is a little gray person.
Right.
I mean,
I do believe that, for one thing. Just statistically and physically, it's very improbable that the whole universe is inhabited only on this one little planet. And some of these, Phil Schneider talked about people that he had met who were from these other places, and how they're directly influencing government, influencing the policies, how there was a treaty where human beings were traded for horrible experimentation. I'd like to say also that in the book, every instance of, say, there's torture, there's experimentation, all of these were drawn from reported real-life events. Another researcher who was killed with cancer, which I do believe is a curable disease. We've had many cures for it. That's another thing that's suppressed in the interest of industry. But this researcher, Carla Turner, she wrote several books, compilations of her interviews with people who had experienced abductions, experimentation, various experiences.
It just seems to me that when I do talk to people about this, and some of them think I'm nuts, but that's okay. Well, how can you believe that? How can you? Well, a lot of people like Jimmy Carter. Now, Jimmy Carter swears he saw flying saucers.
Yes.
Now, you either believe him or you think he's nuts. So if you think that you had a nut in the White House when he was president, well, then that's up to you to decide, how you feel about that. But I really don't think that he would go around talking about stuff like that if he really and truly felt that, yes, I did see something.
Yeah. And he's not alone. There's been astronauts, military colonels who've come out and spoken about what they've seen.
And, of course, some of the astronauts, I understand, when they did mention something about it, they were hushed. You don't talk about this, forget it. And it seemed that, what is your theory about why do you think it would cause panic? Or why do you think that not just the United States government, but the German government, the Russian government, especially the Russian government, don't want anybody really to know about this? Do you think it would cause a panic? Or what's your theory?
Well, actually, I think it's got to be pretty impressive bribes. Because these aliens who've come going from second-hand sources of what I've heard, they've come offering immortality, cures for all illnesses, trans-dimensional travel, where we can just walk through a portal and go to another planet. So when you look at the world today, and that you've got industry running business, and they're really running the earth into the ground. Yeah, and some people say, well, that doesn't support capitalism. They'll always need the customer. They'll always need population, and maybe they don't.
It's interesting because I feel that, as I mentioned before we went on the air, I think it was a few months ago or something like that, when Pope Francis mentioned, somebody asked him about something, and his answer was very simple. He didn't go into it in great detail, but why not? Why would God decide that you're going to be the only planet? Right. I think God's experimenting, and he's saying whichever one of you turn out the best, that's the one that's going to... And there's also research in that we're not the only universe. People think, oh, the universe means complete, and that's it. But there are parallel universes. There are other universes out there. And people say, no, you're crazy, Flo. But I say, okay, well, that's it.
Well, just if you look at the variety and diversity of life here on planet Earth, it's just the mode of nature to have diversity, to have bounty. So I think right now it seems what we've understood even about planets in our own solar system is really very limited. I mean, there might be much closer than we've been led to believe.
Oh, sure. But now the Patriot Vampire, I want everybody to read this book because it is fascinating. Now, on your website, tell me, where can they get it?
Okay. This book is available on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. For information on my upcoming book signings, activities, events, my website is www.martinarts.net. That's Martin, like my last name, MartinArts, plural, on multimedia, .net.
Good. Now, the characters in your book, they go through so many things, some of them not too pleasant. Where actually, at the end of your book, where do you think we're going? Where do you really think that all of us... See, I happen to believe that when my day comes, that I'm no longer here, that I will be going on. I do believe that. I think that we are going to... our souls do exist and go on to another, realm with God. And whether we come back in another planet, as somebody living there, and somebody said to me, Flo, what are you talking about? And I said, if you believe in reincarnation, why does it have to be reincarnated here? Why can't we be reincarnated on another planet?
Yeah.
And so I always say we're never going to get the answers until we meet our maker, and then he or she will say, oh boy, have you been wrong about certain things, But let me ask you a question. Now, you don't have to answer this, Heather, but because I know nothing about, some parts of your background. When you were researching all of this stuff, did anybody that you were talking to about it from a religious standpoint say to you, oh, Heather, you shouldn't go there?
No.
Okay, but good, because
not
sometimes,
really. Maybe my mother, but I don't think she's gotten to that part of the book yet. Interesting you should mention religion. There was a book called Chariots of the Gods.
Yes.
And that's another book I've read in my extensive research and recommend to others. That goes and examines various historical documents, religious documents, ancient texts, and analyzes them, and they really do tell the story of early interactions between peoples of other planets.
Well, if I'm not mistaken, and my audience can correct me, I think in the Old Testament, they describe Elijah being taken up, and some of them say he went up with an angel, but some people in drawings draw it as a chariot.
Mm-hmm.
And why not? They were saying, well, he was abducted by, an alien or something like that. But people at that time, when they were there and they saw him being taken up into the heavens in a chariot. And that's some of the drawings that you see, about that. And I said, well, that makes sense. Why not? Mm-hmm. We're talking about alien abductions now. Why not?
Yeah.
Do that.
It's a little bit colored with the flavor of the time, like
sure.
We would depict things in familiar images today.
Mm-hmm. Right, yeah. Absolutely. Oh, sure. Now, how do you think at the end of your book and everything, how do you feel that your characters in the book, when you were writing it? Well, first, let me ask you, how long did it take you to do this? Because I know you did an awful lot of research on this.
I started this not too seriously. I thought it was just going to be a silly short story back in 2007. And I finished it around the end of 2011. And then kind of went into edits from there
sure.
Quite a while.
Sure. But I really do find it fascinating because did you have any trouble doing your research? Did anybody not want to give you information or,
what was very interesting, actually, one story, is that I wanted to go to MUFON meetings.
What is that? Mutual
UFO Network.
Mm-hmm.
And so I located one in Yonkers, New York.
Mm-hmm.
And Martin and we attended several of these MUFON meetings in Yonkers. And we went there asking questions like, well, who's the new Phil Schneider today? Mm-hmm. Who's the new Bill Cooper? Who's continuing where these men had left off? And there was a man there that, like Martin really suspected, was probably an intelligence operative. And he knew a lot about what we were talking about and talked to us a little bit on the side. And I don't know, by maybe our third or fourth meeting, the MUFON meeting said, the organizer, he said, well, we're going to change the focus of our group. We're going to do recycling and community activities to better our planet. So they were just abandoning this whole subject. And we really felt, because we'd come dropping names, mentioning things, that, okay, they had to shut this down.
Sure. It really amazes me. I don't know, maybe I'm just being naive, whatever. I cannot understand why, well, maybe it's because of panic or whatever, why the government would not allow us to be let in on some of these things. Why can't we have... I think it would change our whole perspective of life. It would change our whole meaning of life to know that, well, hey, there is more out there. And if we can protect what we've got, we can even make that better. But let's keep our minds open to everything.
Well, that would lead to advancement, which is very dangerous for the status quo. And that's what they're interested in protecting. If, the reason that cancer cures are suppressed, they would give life. They would really help our society and people, but they don't do that. They're pushing genetically modified organisms into the food. People don't really want this, but it's being done anyway. So it's not about what's in our best interest. It's about what's in their best interest. The few very rich individuals who've obtained power over the government. And I don't look at our president and our government as really the people to blame, so to say. They are the figureheads, but they're really being manipulated. And I think if if a democratic republic is ever to survive, we need as much of a strong separation between business and economic interests in state as we should have between church and state.
You just said something so important, which a lot of people don't realize. You said democratic republic. People don't realize that the United States is a republic.
It is a republic.
It is a republic. And I'm so tired of people talking about we're no, we're not.
We're not a democracy.
We are not a democracy. We are a republic. That's why some of the states are even called commonwealths. Like the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and there's another state down south of that's a Commonwealth. I mean, we are not a democracy. We are a republic.
And people shy away from the F word, but when you have corporations influencing business to
Would you
the
explain
degree
the
that
F
we
word,
have,
please?
You have fascism.
Right. Yes. Yes. I just wanted my audience to know what that F word was that you were
Leading
referring
into
to.
it. Built the suspense up there.
Right. I didn't want anybody to turn off the radio. But no, that's very, very true. That's very true. Now, Spain was a fascist country. Italy was a fascist country. The funny part of it is, I grew up, during the 30s and the Depression. I went through the Second World War. And I spoke to a lot of Italian people after the war, and before Mussolini became involved with Hitler, they loved Mussolini because he was doing so much for his country. Fascism. You know, I don't particularly like that word, but there are some people who like to be told what to do, when to do it, how to do it, and I just think that, remember, everybody out there, we're a republic.
Yeah. And I think that when you live in a state where the government has really taken on this parental role, this role of protecting the people from themselves, people don't grow up in that environment. I mean, we see now adults behaving in ways that would be reprehensible for children.
Sure.
And, I mean,
absolutely.
You probably see that in later generations.
Heather, I can't. My gosh, we're down to our last 3 minutes.
Okay.
The Patriot Vampire by H.L. Martin. I want Heather to please very slowly state your website.
www.martinarts.net.
And the book can also be gotten on Amazon?
Amazon or Barnes & Noble through the Mid-Hudson Library System.
Right. So I'm telling you, this really is a fascinating book. You're going to pick it up and you're going to say, oh my God, this is such a heavy book. Am I ever going to get through it? Well, Heather, honestly, that's what I thought when you sent me the book. I thought, oh my God. Well, I started reading it and I couldn't put it down. I'd read a little bit and I would put it aside. And then next thing you know, I would be back picking it up because I want to know what's happening next. What are they doing? How are they going to get out of this? What kind of a country are we becoming? And the other countries too. The Vatican has secrets which they haven't told us about, regarding extraterrestrials and all that. Russia has files and files. So was Germany. So please, you will find this a fascinating book. Heather, thank you.
Thank you.
I really appreciate this. And I want to tell everybody about the Greene County Council on the Arts at 398 Main Street in Catskill. Oh, golly, the arts really do need your help and your money. And if you come into the art gallery at 398 Main Street, you'll find a jar up at the reception desk. You can just throw in some loose change. Everything helps. Every little bit helps. And I want to remind you of the Ghent Playhouse. Their first play is Fallen Angels by Noel Coward. I happen to know that play very well. I directed it many years ago when I had my theater company up in Massachusetts. So for tickets, please call 1-800-838-3006 and look for the Bridge Street Theater Company on your website. Just write in Bridge Street Theater in Catskill, and you're going to find out all the marvelous things that are happening there. The Bridge Street Theater Company has really been a great asset to Catskill. We've been playing to full houses. People are loving it, and we're having one heck of a good time. So just remember, there are so many wonderful things going on in Catskill and in Greene County. So we really do need your help. And don't forget the Patriot Vampire, H.L. Martin, and you can get it on Amazon. Okay, and so we're down to our final 10 seconds when it's time for me to say, again, Heather, thank you, and to all of you out there, goodbye. Take care.
Every week, Oldies 93.5 delivers lunch to a